Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Oh man.
What's up, bro? How you been, man?
Oh man, this is great. I mean, I knew you had a beard, but I didn't know I was going to be back. Oh boy.
You're telling me.
I know, true. There you go. There you go.
Look
Oh
like a
man,
true.
Charlie, dude, it is so good to see you.
Yeah. How you been, man?
Y- I mean, honestly, tired. There's a lot of stuff going on in this world, and just, I mean, life in general, phenomenal, but just day by day, I think the past week or so has been a wake up call, and but the energy sucks sometimes.
Hmm.
But no, I'm a fortunate person. I'm out here in Jackson, Wyoming, 10,000 people, so COVID didn't hit us too bad. Um, I have my lovely fiance in the other room. You'll meet her at some point.
Congratulations, man. It's good to hear.
How about yourself? What are you up to?
I'm doing well. I'm just working. I'm staying out the way, taking care of myself. Staying active, taking care of my mental health. Not getting too warped into too much. Um, and just checking up on the loved ones, staying, making sure my mom is fine, my sister's fine, and just staying educated on what's going on, staying aware and really out the way, you know.
Nice.
It's a lot going.
How are your sister and your mom? How are they doing?
They're doing great. My sister, I think she just got her master's, and
Hey.
she's with her. Yeah, she's with her fiance. So she's getting into like political media and stuff like that, which is ironic with everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom, she's still in nursing. She's working full time still. She's still at it. She's doing like little things with her house, little ideas that she has and stuff. So she's doing good. She's active. She's kind of warped up. She's nursing, so the COVID situation kind of had her a little shaky because she's dealing with sick people and whatnot.
Yeah.
But she didn't get sick as far as we know, and she's doing great. So yeah, so far so good. Everyone's staying afloat. You know.
I mean, that's awesome to hear. I know my mom had been talking about how John Dark, your mom, was working as a nurse, and that's like the ultimate front line. So like with the COVID issue at hand, it's awesome to hear she's healthy. Um, yeah, it's a scary time and a lot of sacrifice on her end. So that's really good to
Yeah.
hear. Are they all in
Yeah.
Buffalo still?
Yep. 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 Still in Buffalo. Yeah. Watching things transform right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
It's
what
bittersweet.
do you like?
It's bittersweet because the city is really doing 180, like as far as like morale and yeah, morale, which is I feel like is essential, to get things going in the city. So that was, but then life happens, so we have this situation. So it's kind of bittersweet, but we're making it through.
Mhm.
We're making it through, making it through.
Tell me a little bit about IMJC, the rap, dude. I didn't know you were doing that at all, and then I went
Me
on.
neither.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Me neither. Me neither. So when I finished school, when I got my bachelor's, I was working full time, and I had a bunch of friends that were already making music and doing modeling stuff, and I wanted to help them out. So I got with a friend, and we came up with this idea to kind of like make a production company to basically have people take more pictures for our friends who are doing all these things and have a way to get that content out so that they get more exposure and more chances for them to be professional at whatever they do.
Super cool.
So we did that. We got like a DBA, we got it up to LLC, and we got it incorporated. We were doing well. We were doing well. Only thing we did not have was sales and marketing. So we realized that, and we kind of let things become dormant. And in the midst of that, life happens, and working with a whole bunch of musicians and stuff, I was kind of around music the whole time. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I was recording a song, and it was real therapeutic though. It was real therapeutic. And what I like the most out of it is it's like I've never, besides basketball, right? So I got injured. I was playing at Madai, and then I hyperextended my hip, and I never got it taken care of, and it was like my junior year. So
Mhm.
I got really down, but then I kind of like had to just finish school and figure out what I wanted to do. That's how I got into that production stuff.
I see. Okay.
So um yeah, so but other than basketball, uh this journey of like, meeting people, I'm learning so much about myself. So like that's one thing that's like that's I'm very grateful for. And I feel like it's important for me just so that I can have a better understanding of how I respond to things, so I can have a better view on how to address things, in life.
Interesting.
So yeah, so now it's like it's turning into something, I guess. And but that's not, my mind isn't distracted from what's happening in the real world nonetheless today. If
Yeah.
anything, you know, just like any skill or craft or service, it's like a way to contribute and like, in some form or way to make some type of influence, you know what I mean? As far
Hmm.
as with everything going on.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you expand on that a little more? I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm talking with Charlie this evening, and he's like, yeah, I want to hear about the rap, and like, do you feel that like you're saying is like does that self expression extend really into like what you're seeing happening right now, and do you feel that like you really want to work on it more, or kind of like speak to that a little bit?
It's almost like journalism. It's like journalism. It's like another medium, right? It's
Hmm.
like another medium, just like any form of entertainment or art, I believe is. So, in that sense, there's a responsibility that comes with that. Just like, if I was working at a newspaper, or some sense of integrity. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so that's how I look at it. And at first, when I started, I can't say that's not the intention I came in with it. I didn't even have any intention when I came into it, but I see how it could be an opportunity or an avenue to communicate to people who are willing to give me an ear, you know, and communicate to them in a way that they can relate to and actually get something across. It just so happens to be that I don't know where it came from, Will, but I just so happen to be good with words. I don't know if it's like, yeah. So it just so happened to be like I was always good at writing, like essays and stuff like that. And I was always good at writing. I was always good at writing. And I was always good at like articulating myself. I feel like that's why um I was like in the art stuff. Like I used to draw and stuff. I don't know if you remember.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
yeah, I do.
yeah, so I was always like good at being able to break down what's on my mind and then putting back out in pieces. So I'm grateful for that. So there's a responsibility of like a little integrity in there too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, it's really cool to hear when people have kind of found that with themselves. I think a lot of times people go through life like, come on, like what am I good at? Like what are my passions? And for you to like have had that skill for so long and to find it in a spot where you're able to like have it land somewhere where you're making an impact and everything, I think that's super rad.
Appreciate that, bro. Thank you. And right back at you, bro. I was looking at your Instagram page. I went on the website. I like I like what you got going on there.
Yeah, I
Like
appreciate
I don't
that.
I do I do want to hear more and see, get a little more. It looks I'm not too I like what it looks like. I'm not too sure what the story behind it is,
Hmm.
but I like what you're doing, bro.
Yeah, thank you. It's honestly, this is kind of one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is the idea of like authenticity. And I mean, I guess the most immediate example off the top of my head is so on Tuesday, which would be 2 days ago now, Blackout Tuesday, right? And every single person in the world, it seems, posting a black square on their Instagram page. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I did it myself, right? It's like, hey, this is a way of showing support, and I believe in this. Phenomenal. So I posted, and it must have been 10 minutes later that I saw a different post saying, "Don't post the black square. It's only muddling the content that's flowing through here, and it's hiding the really important content beneath all these random squares, right?"
Hmm.
And so I took mine down, and it was one of those things where I really struggled with this, like, gosh, is it just groupthink? Am I just like dealing with like really reactionary? And I've been trying to kind of find solace in the idea that, um, like, I am learning, right? I'm a white male, and I'm trying to follow the lead of the black community. And so if they say do this, I'm doing it. If they say do this, I'm giving it a shot, as long as it's within the right intention, of course, right? Um, and so I guess like what I still was struggling with was that people who I'd never seen post before, right? They have like 10 followers, one post, and they posted on that day this black square, and it was almost, to me, it felt more of a sign of like, hey, well, I'm not a racist, right? Like, look, I have a black square, and that lack of authenticity is what I was like struggling with. And I think that even with my work, I work at an outdoor gear company, right? I mean, Jackson is almost all white people, and our community with our outdoor gear is mostly white people. And so, how do we speak to the Black community in an authentic way that shows we really care, without it being something that's like, oh, well, they're just putting that out there because they have to? Like, can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're doing right now is setting a great example already by showing the intent and the will to be receptive to understanding and getting deep into the situation. I think that's a great example because believe it or not, Will, that's rare and that's seldom. Just believe it or not. So and it's not intentional. I do want to say it's not intentional. And so I think one thing as far as I hear you on that group thing too. And I think it's very essential that the authenticity is there, like you say, because that relates to genuineness, and intent, which goes back to, reflect on what you're doing right now. So kudos to that. I think that's a great start. And I think more people can do that as well. And also I think another thing we have to do is look at cause and effect. We got to kind of take a step back and just like pause and look at cause and effect. It's deep. It's very deep. And what I mean by cause and effect is like we have to look at history. We have to look at history, and we have to go back to countries and peoples in Europe, in Portugal, Spain, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, and all over across Europe, um, going to other continents and putting, sacks on people, kidnapping people with ropes and chains, and all this stuff is on Google and accessible. Putting them on at the bottom of boats, and taking them from kids and their mothers and having them go through journeys going from coast to coast, from stomach to back as planks, no bathroom breaks, no food, and rotten dead bodies piling up as you go from one coast to another, and all the way to, like forcing people to do work and without them willing beating people with rods, metal rods and sticks, feeding them to animals, burning them, hanging them, celebrating those things, and all the way to like even having laws and constitutions that allow room for immoral behavior, because it comes down to human rights. There's a lot of talk about civil rights, but it really comes down to human rights. And the United Nations has like a human rights document that the whole world, I guess, is supposed to abide to, or else they get called up and judged. Each president that does like genocides and stuff like that. So there's a human
Mhm.
rights thing that we all had to like live according to, every country in the world. And we have to, I feel like, making laws and constitutions that make room, that allow for room, excuse me, that ensure and enforce human rights, making laws and rules and constitutions that enforce human rights. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we coexist. We have to coexist, and we share this space together. So in coexisting, there's a duty. We all have a duty in coexisting. And part of that duty is being responsible, being accountable, and being able to acknowledge, looking into, I was looking into those words, and I came to find out like that the root meaning of being responsible means being able to make a pledge or promise. Being accountable means being able to reckon or recount and look back on the account of things, and then acknowledging, which is just accepting the record of the facts. And that's part of our duty as people sharing a space, coexisting in a space, whether it's a neighborhood, a state, a country, a world, a room. you know there's a shared space, and we all have a responsibility, a duty to that space. And yeah, I think we have to think about what our contributions are to that space. So looking back at history, reflecting, acknowledging, and then being accountable, reckoning, looking back at the record and pledging, being responsible. What can I contribute to this space that we share, so that we can make it a space for decent men and women, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and so we got to take a step back and think about all that, and we use like history because there's a lot of insight in there. There's a lot of insight in there, and it's essential for like direction, which is what we're trying to figure out right now. Where do we go from here? How do we go about things from here? Um, so we think about, what we can contribute, and then we get wisdom from that. There's wisdom out of that. We get insight, and we can approach things, on a more wise way than in reckless, foolish ways. And that goes for everybody across the board. This goes for everybody across the board. And and then it also comes down to like, we gotta, so it's like coexisting. We gotta look at cause and effect, and look at the space we share, and see what we could contribute to it, and look at history, based off of history, what we could contribute as individuals and as a group to the space that we share. Um, and
Charlie, before
otherwise,
the quick question about like the what we contribute component. I was having a conversation just this morning with a friend of mine, and he's not on social media at all, right? And so he feels like he's kind of separated from a lot of what's happening right now. He reads the news, but I think that's mainly kind of reporting, and it's not as much of a here's some action items, right? If you go on social media, it's you click this link to get involved, you click here to sign this petition, and it's really actionable. Um, and so he was saying, which I thought was interesting, I couldn't place my thoughts on it, was he was saying that his passion is finances, right? And that but if he is doing that as he always has, and if he follows that, then in doing so, he will be happier himself and able to be a better contributor to society. And I guess yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts kind of on that space, because my struggle with it, and which I kind of pushed him on, was like, it's great that that is something that is fulfilling for you, but it has to be more. That a lot of this conversation is what else can you do? So, for example, like this platform, Full Table, I usually use it in a realm of like a themed dinner, right? And I have 8 people, and we kind of chat about, I don't know, my cup here, or basketball, whatever it might be. And so they're like, that's cool, and that's still community building, but that the conversation, it seems to me, or from what I've been trying to kind of understand, is that that's not enough. And like now is the time to have that kind of cause and effect, and like follow the leadership of the Black community, and to look into the space that you hold and say, hey man, like I'm already doing a podcast. I've got to get the Black community on here to hear their voices, to hear their perspectives, to educate my friends who are white, right? Um, and so it didn't feel like it was enough to me. But do you feel like that is a good enough answer? Like, kind of, what's your headspace with that?
So as far as your friend, I would say like it's a couple of things to think about because there's a lot of emotions running around, you know, and we can get warped into those emotions. And it's hard to be level-headed when we get warped into those emotions. So the reason I say that is because it's easy for people to make your friend feel guilty right now because of the situation at hand for a couple of reasons, right? Because he's white, right?
Mm.
And two, also because the way history is taught, it's summarized. So it's not in detail. So the gravity of where people are complaining from, it doesn't resonate thoroughly right now because the history of things kind of has been summarized through in school or however it's taught, you know, or it's
Mm.
saved for a month, you know. So I, I personally feel like that's why taking that personal time, setting aside like 15 minutes to go on Google and look and see why do people feel the way they do, and you know, look at like your friend is in finance. I would encourage him to look into something called the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing, also known as Black Wall Street, and which was basically Wall Street after slavery, where African Black people got together and made banks and had their own businesses going on, almost similar to how like the Jewish community has their own businesses going on, you know, and it got bombed, right? It got bombed. So like that kind of, I say that only because it relates to finances, you know. So that's like that could be an avenue for him to look into the moral side of what's going on, and complement what he already knows about the, you know, financial, tangible aspect of things in the world right now, you know.
Yeah, the history behind
Um,
that, that's fascinating. It's easy to think of finances in a very numerical way, right? Like you're saying, that the tangibles, but then there's so much more to it that they probably don't teach in finances. They're like, there's no way that your accounting classes teach that, right?
and you know, history classes do not teach it to the T as well, you know. And I want to emphasize because there's a lot of European history in schools, right? But there's not a lot of African Black history taught to the same volume, you know. Also, to be more specific, it's when I was saying it's summarized like, you know, the way things are presented in school and education today. It's not fair to us as people, black and white, because it limits information, and that limits what we can do, right? So that limits what we know. It limits your friend knows what
Mm-hmm.
white people know, right? And it limits what the tools they have to address the situation. You know what I'm saying? So that's so it's like at this point it's on us. You know what I mean? On us, you and me, black and white together, because I emphasize that in that aspect rather than it's not up to any external institution or concept. No, no external institution or concept is going to be able to address a moral situation. You know, so that as you can see, so that history part of it is it's just so happens to be the circumstances. You know, it's not no one's fault, but now we can encourage each other and kind of guide each other to look into, you know, objective, neutral facts of the past, you know, and kind of together reckon and recount and recall, you know, and together those events, you know, just so we can the same way, like just like life, you know, we look back on our mistakes, like personal life mistakes, so that we don't repeat them, you know. As a
Mm-hmm.
group, we can also do that, you know, and it just so happens to be the circumstances, you know, that the I, I don't know what it just so happens to be the circumstances that information is there, but it's not presented in full package, you know, not presented in full package. So I encourage the thorough, patient, you know, patient, diligent reading and watching some like films of like, you know, like your friend. I would encourage them to look up some movies on like Black Wall Street and how they were functioning, and the bombing that happened, you know, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which basically sent. It's like imagine if there's the world and then only America was white and the rest of the world was black, and then you throw bombs on every bank in America, and now the people in America have to start all over, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that is not taught in school. You know what I mean? It's not
Mm-hmm.
taught in school at all. The Middle Passage, you know, the stories about how children were put, you know, chained to their moms and kids stomach to back, and literally like from you're on ship for like 6 months, and you don't stretch at all. You're like stiff for 6 months. You gotta poop and pee on your kids. Forget food. It's like if you make it you do, if you don't. And that's where the term belly of the beast came from, because the bottom of the ship is referred to as the belly of the ship, and in there was just like another type of beast down there. So like that type of detailed information must be communicated so that the gravity of where people are complaining from is it resonates, you know, resonates.
Yeah, that connection, I think like you're saying, the connection of that history to people now, that it's not saying that there's a like, oh well, your great great grandfather was a plantation owner, therefore you're racist. That like that's not what's being said, but that the history, I think you're completely right that like I've heard, I forget where I heard this, but it was something along the lines of um, in America, there is equal opportunity, but not equal equity. And that you, like what you just said right there, defunks that, right? That you're saying, no, no, no. Equal opportunity is based on the idea that people came here because they wanted to. And people were forced here. They were dragged here and chained, and it was miserable. And that equal opportunity is not the case. And so that completely underlines that. I think that your words are like perfectly said, that history component being taught in detail to then inform like why people are demonstrating, why they're protesting, because there is a connection. I think in the history books growing up, we often heard, oh yeah, well, like the Middle Passage, we heard about that, but that was so long ago and terrible, and that would never happen now. And so it's this like
But
disconnect.
these are their great grandkids who you're
Exactly.
walking next to, you know, and it's uh it's important because yeah, that I like what you said, but it's not saying, oh, you're great. It's again, it's about the space that we share. So history, timeline, events, those experiences create an atmosphere that we're all in right now. The atmosphere doesn't go anywhere regardless of the time period, you know.
Mm.
The atmosphere is just transforming over time, you know. So based on what we tribute to it, you know. And yeah, it's about the space that we share. It's about the space that we share and coexist in, you know, rather than looking for somebody to pinpoint it to.
I gotta say, the space that we share has got to be your new album cover. I mean, that's like I love that,
You
man.
know what's
That's
funny?
awesome.
It's, it's funny you say that. My next project is actually going to be called Lit, and it's going to be acronym for Lost in Translation. So ironic.
Oh man, yeah. How is that project coming? Like, are you recording like daily? Are you making? I saw a couple music videos. I haven't seen the full array there, but is that something? Are you churning those out pretty fast now?
You know what? It comes naturally, so I don't have a schedule for things. So because it comes naturally, I just so happy it just ends up being it always ends up being like, oh, well, I have this, so I might as well package it into this and put it out, you know? So I just, because it's so much life going on, going back to like being a medium, right? There's so much life going on, and that, you know, it's kind of hard to, if you look, when looking, there is always like inspiration or something to, you know, refract with my interpretation of it, you know?
Mhm.
And the reception I get is based on how sincere I am, you know, based on how informed I am. You know, I can't just be talking out my ass and then no one's then like, you know, like
Yep.
what's my substance? You know, what am I building? What am I contributing to this space? You know, so I'm grateful for that. You know, and I think there's responsibility in there, like I was saying, and to be of integrity in that. And yeah, so
That
it comes
authenticity definitely comes through, man. I mean, like
it
it's
comes to, yeah, and I'm grateful for it.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Like I don't listen to a ton of rap. I'm a J. Cole fan, but it's one of those things that certain rappers you can like the wording, the flow. There are certain components to it that I think the authenticity is just it's there, you know. And I would say that about your music. Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to give it like another thorough listen through. I just had it playing in the background while I was doing work the other day. Um,
Hmm.
and because it is, I mean, it's perfect for that. Like I'm just like typing my keyboard on a flow, right? No,
That's
but
good to hear. That's good to hear, man. That's really good to hear, man. That's
no,
really
without
good
a
to hear.
doubt. Uh,
I saw a tweet. I'm sorry, not to cut you off. But I saw a
oh no,
tweet on Twitter that was like, if you can't play my music at community events, you know, then I'm not doing my job or something, you know. But granted, you know, if there's like swearing in there and there's authenticity, you know, there's
Yeah,
authenticity, you know, there's authentic genuineness. So
that's beautiful. Well, hey, I mean, I'll let you go this evening. I wanna call with you. I want to get my parents on here and chat with you as well. I think I mean, honestly, I got kind of emotional this today. I was thinking about you and growing up. That I mean, you were my inspiration for how to smoothly get to the rim at St. John Fisher basketball camp. I'm not sure if your buddies are blocking you these days, but I was thinking back to those times, and it was making me really nostalgic. I missed it, but hey, it's super good to see you're doing well. Please do give my love to your sister and your mom. And I know if you have the chance to swing by and see Uncle Mike and Aunt Mary and all of them, they'd absolutely love it. So, hey, man,
Bro.
thank you so much. Yeah, love you tons.
Yeah, love you too, bro. It's a pleasure, man. Definitely call me back with the parents so I can say hi to Uncle Sean and Aunt G, and say hi to Connor and the rest of the family for me, man.
I will. I will. Well,
All
hey,
right,
stay safe and definitely pass any music my way. I'll always give it a listen.
all right, that's a bet. Appreciate you,
All
bro.
right, Charlie. Talk to you
Great,
soon, buddy.
great work, and thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Have a good one.